That person, I would still put that question back to you.
Yeah.
Now, but maybe ask whether it does dramatically change anything.
Yeah, well, again, it's about art. And art has so much impact on the mind, on people. So where the elitist forms like poetry, like the short story, like the novel fail to reach, the theater does that, because it is the most informal form of art.
What is Asuu really fighting for? I mean,
There are a number of things that Asuu are fighting for. One of it, which is funding of the university. They want the university to be well funded so that the academics can do their work very well. Apart from that, also they also want the university, the academic staff, members of the academic staff, to be well paid so that they can concentrate on their job. I always tell my friends in Europe that, look, an academic in Nigeria, your head is split into about 8 spheres.
Hi there, welcome to Akweya TV, where we focus on history, art, culture, and development. I have my friends in the studio, so today is just going to be one interesting one, because these guys are writers, they are theater practitioners, and the most interesting is that these guys are now both in Kano, So, because Kano people say, Kode Mekazo Amfika, whatever you come with, we're better than you. So I have two guys in the studio from the far right, if I would say, right, left. Yeah, Dr. Olai Fatime is the HOD theater at the
Bayero
University, Kano. You're most welcome.
Thank you so much.
And there's another interesting thing about him. He is also a proponent of what we call Ingausa poetry, and we're going to come to that. And I have with me, from all the way from Kano again, like I said, Dr. Saka Aliu. Dr. Saka Aliu is the author of Altine, a short story, a book of fiction. And he also has edited some anthologies, and we'll talk about those two. But one important thing that I want us to talk about is whether these writings we do, does literature and theater, do they make any difference in our conversations in this society? Does it really, is it going to change anything, like 2023 is coming, that kind of thing? That's one question I want to ask you guys before I ask for introductions. Okay. So I'll start with you, Dr. Saka.
Yeah, thank you for having me on Akweya TV. And I think that literature and arts generally, they do have an influence. It may be subtle, but definitely they do have an influence on people, whether from poetry or drama or fiction, because it changes people's perspectives about certain things when they read these works of art. Just about 2 weeks ago, Facebook will bring reminders. So they brought a reminder of my play. And one of the students from the ABU who read it, and said, oh, this was the play. It took me back home. I mean, she grew up away from the setting of the play, but the play gave her, a reason to go back to her roots, to her history, gave her opportunity to understand her history in a way that she never expected that she would. So to say that literature they do definitely have an impact. Yeah.
We always ask these kind of questions, especially when we're expecting a mighty change, like 2023 is coming. People are expecting things to dramatically change. The pun is not intended.
Yeah.
So as a theater person, I would still put that question back to you.
Yeah.
Now, but maybe ask whether it does dramatically change anything.
Yeah, well, again, it's about art. And art has so much impact on the mind, on people. So where the elitist forms like poetry, like the short story, like the novel fail to reach, the theater does that, because it is the most informal form of art. People play around, people joke, people laugh, but at the end of the day, you're touching people's conscience, you are touching people's consciousness, you are bringing about a change in paradigms, change in perspectives, just like you said. So yes, from the community engagements we also do, where we use theater for development, theater for other purposes, you could see that when people play together, they develop new behaviors, new habits, new attitudes, and this reflects on the way they live. So yes, theater, drama, dramatically changes situations and people.
So like situation, I asked, as soon as you were talking, I said, oh, you guys are both Asuu members. And everybody at home now will be wondering, why doesn't drama change the way Asuu approaches? Because I know Asuu has a genuine grievance, and for me, I don't worry so much about, I don't castigate Asuu for being on strike. But why is Asuu losing the war, the media war, when people like you are there?
Well, Saki Jojo is more active, in Asuu. When anybody asks me about Asuu, I simply say I'm not the right person to answer things that have to do with Asuu. But again, yes, there is the need to deploy the arts in getting people to understand, first and foremost, why Asuu is on strike, and then make it so informal, so easy for people to understand. Because most of the people who are castigating Asuu, just like you mentioned, don't really know why Asuu is on strike. Yeah, so we can use art to get people to understand why Asuu is on strike. But the more active Asuu person would...
Yeah, I always think that I think even the government should be taking Asuu for not utilizing these facilities that you have just mentioned. Because that's one of my belief, my argument. I always share this on our Asuu WhatsApp platform, that look, we are not doing enough information to this, to the disinformation that the government are sending out to people. Asuu is not doing enough. We have people in mass comm departments who specialize in knowing how these things are done. That's what they are field. So you should be able to use these things. Like you also mentioned drama. I've never thought about it, but now that you mention it, yeah, it's one of those things that you could do to let the people know. Because the problem is that people do not know, do not understand. Because the moment the people know why Asuu is on strike, actually they will take the fight on behalf of Asuu. Yeah. So the government should actually be thanking Asuu for, sleeping on this side of utilizing the arts and the information facilities that they have, to counter government disinformation about what Asuu is really fighting for.
What is Asuu really fighting for? I don't want you to sound like a spokesperson, so I don't. Whatever he's saying, he's not the PRO.
Yeah, I'm not a PRO for
just
Asuu.
Because now this is an avenue.
Yes.
Those watching, what is Asuu fighting for? Because the government says you're only fighting for your pockets.
Yeah, there are a number of things that Asuu are fighting for. One of it, which is funding of the university. They want the university to be well funded, so that the academics can do their work very well. Apart from that, also they also want the university, the academic staff, members of the academic staff, to be well paid, so that they can concentrate on their job. I always tell my friends in Europe that, look, an academic in Nigeria, your head is split into about 8 spheres, so you cannot even concentrate on what you are doing. Now, among even members of Asuu, sometimes there are people who think, look, stop telling the government to fund the university. Let them not fund. Let them just improve upon our welfare. If they do that, the rest will take care of itself. But the danger is this. I always use this analogy for what Asuu is fighting for, the revitalization thing, as well as the take-home pay. It's like a house that has pillars. Take the pillar as the revitalization thing that we're asking for, is rotting and is going to fall. In the room, the furnitures are also not comfortable. But that's where you're going to sit. So if you say, okay, give us the seat, we get the seat. They will give us the seat, but the building will collapse on us as well. Because if you are well paid, and then the facilities you are going to work with is not there, it still falls back to the same thing. And all these things, the academic staff of the university, they are the people who are training everybody. If they do not train you directly, they train the people who train you. So, and then look at other parts of the world. If you invest in education, the impact will come back on the society. So it is this that the academic staff is fighting for improvement on the on education, including the budgets, because not just about Asuu, but also the education sector generally. I think the last one is about 8%, and when the United Nations and UNESCO, proposed a minimum of 26%, but we're not getting that. So now we know that this is possible. We've seen in other countries where people are funding education, you see the impact. It is not something that you see directly in the market, but the impact is there. So those are the things that the academic staff are fighting for, because it tests back on society. The children of the poor will not be able to continue education if things continue like this. If you get to a point, the private sector are trying to come into education, and when we have a lot of people who will not ever have the opportunities to, to have this higher education, and it is very, very important for a nation. The world is now knowledge driven, and it is in the university where you have the best wing, where knowledge is being incubated, and you see the impact on society. So basically, those are what the things that the academic staff are fighting for. They want improved funding for the university system, improved pay for the academic staff, and then also the proliferation of state universities. People just establish universities, and then the responsibility, they are not ready to be responsible for what it's not enough to start a university, but you must be able to fund it. Because when the university is well funded, the impact will come back on the society. So that's why Asuu is insisting that government should fund education. And they've been having, people always think that Asuu loves strike. Well, you will notice that strike is always the last option. After months and years of negotiation, talking to government. And look, me, as an undergraduate, my first year in the university, I spent 11 years. When I got a job in the university, within the first 2 weeks, there were 2 weeks when it's not like we love it. We have children, we have relatives who are in the university as well. We don't enjoy it. We don't enjoy it.
If the people in positions of authority, like if there's a policy that says all the people, if you're a House of Reps member, a senator, a governor, all your children that are in school should be in school in Nigeria, would that have helped this situation?
Definitely. You can see what happened when a member of the House of Reps tried to introduce a bill that would force the people in power to have their children in Nigeria. It was shut down. They shouted him down because the implication, if you are the Minister of Education and I am a Minister of Health and my children are in university and there's a problem, I can call you and say, look, something is wrong. But when you don't have a stake, in it, your children are schooling abroad or in private university, so anything can happen.
Okay, I don't want to make this about us. So I want to ask Dr. Ola in a certain sense, because we are writers and theater practitioners. Are there texts that have tried to tell this in a creative way, or plays about the Asuu situation, the educational situation, that have tried to throw these issues up?
Yeah, writers will always respond to the issues in the society, and especially academics, when they want people to understand what's going on in the ivory towers, they write about them. But again, it's the access to this information. Of course, there are plays, there are novels about situations in the universities and how the funding and all the things Asuu is fighting for now are still there. But it's the access to this information, just like we said. And the play text, for me, is quite elitist. One, you must know how to read. And people, especially dramatic texts, read plays because they are prescribed, not because they love to read plays. You hardly find anybody walking into a bookshop to pick a dramatic text to go and read. But you see people buying novels, buying collection of poetry and all that, but not drama, right? If you see anybody reading play, like I know that most of the people who read plays are plays that are recommended for academic purposes, or they want to perform it or something, Yeah, so this is why I promote, I enjoy the non-formal dimensions of theater, which goes beyond people who can read to even people who work on the streets. You will go to the streets, you go to communities to perform issues and all that. And just like he mentioned, if Asuu should deploy these forms, people will know better, because ordinarily people are simply concerned that their wards are at home and these people just are selfish. They go home, forgetting that the Asuu members are the ones who actually suffer the most once we are on strike, because of no work, no pay. Yeah, so no salaries are stopped. But I mean, you will still have to eat. You will still have to move around. You will still have to.
Some of my medications, and when there's no salary, I know of a professor from the last strike. He eventually died because when the salary was stopped, he could not afford to buy the drugs it was used to, maintaining his health. Somebody saw him, a student saw him in a chemist asking for a cheaper drug. So those are the implications. There are many professors like that. Even right now, people are complaining, but we are holding on because that's about the only language that the government understands. It's the only language they understand, the language of strike. There's only then that they begin to. Every good thing you've seen in the university, like TED fund, that is being used to fund the university now, came as a result of these strikes. Yeah, it's a big sacrifice that Asuu actually is giving when we go on strike, and we are getting little. So the little you see, the little good you see in the university have been the results of years of recurring strikes. Yeah.
Okay, I'll come back just after the break, but then I know that you guys are practitioners.
Yeah.
I told you about Ingausa poetry and then the Almajiri, the voice of the Almajiri anthology.
Yeah.
So when we come back, we'll have a conversation about this stuff that they are doing and they have done. The Nigeria Poetry Festival is also one thing that Dr. Olai Fatimei is on the board of, and we'll talk about that. So stay tuned. Don't forget to share.
The way you do me, I'm getting confused. Hi, my name is Zita, and you're watching Akweya TV.
This is Akweya TV. I encourage you to watch it. This is where you get to hear and know about the Akweya people.
Akweya TV.
Welcome back to the conversation we're having on Akweya TV. It's relating to, we got Asuu in, but I told you these guys are my friends and we've been from way back. So I want to talk about the things you are doing and you have done creatively, particularly the collection of poetry around the Almajiri issue. Who was the target of that? Was it the children themselves, or was it an advocacy thing you were trying?
Yeah, like I wrote in the introduction, that is an advocatory anthology. The anthology itself addresses people like you and me who have the power, to impact on these children. Because the children on their own and their system in which they are based, they are in such a situation that they can be of little of themselves. It is people like me who have the power, like using poetry, to draw attention to people that, look, these people, they are also human beings. Whatever the problem may be, people have a lot of misconceptions about this Almajiri. There are issues, there are layers and layers. You need to do a lot of genealogy to be able to understand. Even me, initially, I used to deride those children. Actually, when I was in secondary school, I don't like them. But I got to a point I began to study and I began to understand what the problem is. And anybody you've seen who have really worked close to them, you will see that they have a very profound empathy and love for the children and the system. It is an economic issue, a socio-economic issue in the gap of religion. That is just, so we need to, what I try to do with that anthology is to gather people together and, express their feelings about the Almajiris. One of the words that keep recurring in the poetry, in the lines of use, is the word tattered, because you see them in tattered clothes. So for me, one of the things that inspired me, there was this cartoon, and I think it's an Indian cartoon, in which, a set of ants, they gathered together and formed themselves into one. And, they flung something like an elephant, they flung it down. So I tried to say that, look, The problem that people think is intractable about this Almajiri is just for people to be able to come together with the ideas and put it into practice. It's not something that cannot be solved, but we need to work together, people from different sectors with different opportunities, and come together, and then, and the problem can be ameliorated. So that's the purpose of this, to address the people who may be in position of power to impact on those children. And not the children themselves, because they've not been to school, so they cannot read. And people actually ask me, "Oh, why can't you do a Hausa version?" And I've asked a friend of mine who is into Hausa. They're like, "Look, that's an idea. We can also do it. We can even get some of the Almajiris themselves to write poetry about their situation." Yeah.
Oh, that's great. Dr. Ola, you have been doing things like that too, like the Nigeria Poetry Festival, the Ingausa Poetry thing, where you also facilitated. How did you, bearing a name, Ola Ifatime, come to be the one, being the proponent of Ingausa, poetry with Khalid Imam?
Yes. Well, at first I was simply just playing with, because I write poetry and my immediate audience, my immediate readership would be people from the north, so at a point I was just mixing for fun. And then it occurred to me that most of the young people around, actually, like when you see them do hip hop or do poetry recitations and all that, they mix these things, So, and it's not because of the inadequacy of language. It's not because they do not fully comprehend the Hausa language or English, right? But that they find it a more comfortable mode of expression when they mix it. So what we started was to hold workshops to look at how we can actually artfully combine these two languages to create poetry. So we had like 4 to 5 different workshops, and people bought into it. So we felt, it was part of the
maiden one.
Exactly. And AkweyaTV also provided the platform for us to have the virtual meeting or the workshop. So after that, we called for contributions from people. And of course, there will be the naysayers always, that we are corrupting Hausa language. In fact, so somebody actually sent me a message that, it was on the platform, that Khalid Imam is allowing somebody who is non-Hausa to corrupt Hausa. That, and I'm glad
that you are doing something, impactful.
Yeah,
Really.
and I'm glad that professors professors who are Hausa people came to my defense and the defense of Ngausa, and they said it's not the Ngausa that people know about, because there's actually an Ngausa which is negative, because they are saying people who simply because they lack the vocabulary, they now mix Hausa with English language.
So one is broken,
yes.
and then one is pidgin.
So, but we are saying that no, our Ngausa is actually a deliberate act of code switching, code mixing, and it's not due to a lack of vocabulary, Yeah, so, we deliberately allow for the code switching and then we also pay attention to the rules of poetry. Of course, because it's not just about writing and mixing Hausa and English, but what about rhythm? What about figures of speech and all that, So you need to be a master of the two languages, English and Hausa, for you to be able to write Ngausa. So we called, and then CITAD in Kano actually sponsored the anthology of Ngausa, the very first anthology of Ngausa that we have, which is Corruption. Because their idea was that it's fine, that it's good art, but we need to pick an issue in society that will resonate. So if we have that, they are willing to sponsor. So they sponsored Corruption, which I edited alongside Khalid Imam, and that is how we have that first anthology. And very soon we are also calling again. We pick another issue in society and then we employ Ngausa poetry for it.
So you are getting into what we have been calling in Splendors, we call it poetry for development.
Yeah. Yeah, so it's poetry for development.
Poetry for development.
Yeah.
So you guys, the bulk of your practice is now engaging social issues. Are you seeing the needle moving positively, or in what direction is it moving? Let me talk from Saka.
Yeah, this, like I said previously, these things are subtle things. The art does not change society overnight. It comes gradually, because what it works on the consciousness of the people.
Also, so drama does not do it dramatically.
Yeah. It comes gradually. When people keep, like the anthology that we're talking about. So, people have been saying that, look, all we've been hearing is talk about Almajiri, and nothing is being done. And I argue differently that, look, it's because we have not talked enough. Because how do you get, if you want somebody to pay attention to you, when somebody keeps calling your name, at a point in time, you will turn and say, who is calling me? So if you keep talking about this Almajiri, it will get to a point, the people that needs to do something will say, look, what is it that these people are talking about? Let's listen to, or let's talk to them, or let's listen to them. So exactly. So we need to keep on talking about it. It's not this same thing I was told almost 17 years ago when I wrote the Altine, and I did some projects for Almajiri. I provided food for them, clothing, even training. What people do not understand, for example, like that, I'm not an outside person. What's my business with Almajiri? But these are human beings, and they are Muslims like me, and I've been through this same kind of education that they have been through, and I didn't have to beg. But of course, the contexts are different. There's a great deal of poverty among it's only the children of the very poor that you find in this system. So it tells the economic background of the problem. But there are also solutions that can be, provided, and they have been provided. It's just we need people who will now implement those solutions.
So things are changing?
Yeah, certainly. But you see, again, like I say, you do not expect that the art will construct roads for you, will do all those things, but it touches on mindsets. Exactly. And once people begin to change the way they think, they begin to do the right things. Yeah. I remember an instance where drama dramatically changed something.
Okay.
Yes, we went to Funtua for community theater. And the notions we have from the books we have read is that you'll go around, see the situation, mix with the people, create drama, and then show it to them, and then we go back to the university. But what we were doing, there was this local government chairman, then do say Asuu, I can't remember his full name, in Funtua. He came up with a system that supports whatever the community wants to do. But rather than doing it for you, he supports you with the materials you need to carry the process through. So when we got there, for instance, they were doing this thing they call Gaya, which is the community coming together to either farm, to do communal work together, generally. So we got there and they were dancing, drumming, cooking, and doing all that, And while they were at it, they were digging drainages, clearing, doing sanitation and all that. So at the end of the drumming, the singing, the dancing, the habitation has changed. It's no longer dirty. The rains are coming, so there won't be flooding because they have done the drainages and all that, So that is drama or theater actually going about changing the community immediately. Immediately they are drumming, singing, but they were working. Yeah. And through that art, they have changed their community, right there. But on issues that are of more national, that's not just about the immediacy of the environment, we need policy makers, people who have the power and the opportunity to actually change these things, to have access to the cries. Because once there is that disconnect, there is always crisis, So we need to get them to understand that these are these issues. I was at the book launch for the Almajiri anthology. And somebody asked, I think it was the keynote speaker, the person asked, so we are all gathered here, where are the Almajiris that we are talking about? You know, because he was thinking that we needed the Almajiri people. Are we writing for them or that, you know? But it was just an advocacy for people to understand that this issue is there and people know it and people are complaining and that it is majorly more of an economic issue than a religious matter, you know? Yeah, so, and because of that, we are hoping that policymakers, decision makers will step into it and bring about the change that is required. Yeah.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate the points you have made, and really our time is up, and I really want to thank you for coming to the show all the way from Kano to Mingiwa.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
You're most welcome.
Yeah.
And for those of you who think that the arts cannot change things, as you've heard, a lot of things have changed. But if you disagree, please send us a word, you know, a comment on social media. We'll be waiting to hear from you. Have you seen any dramatic change that happened as a result of drama, poetry, or any other thing? We'd like to hear from you. On Akweya TV, that's what we love to see. History, art, culture, and development. Thank you for staying tuned, and please keep sharing this video for any other one that needs to hear. If you need to have someone else in the studio, suggest to us. We don't charge a fee for that. I want to have these conversations. Thank you.